ordinance. But so we were there. We applied back in October, so almost a year ago. We submitted our application. We got our first comment letter of deficiencies back in the first week in February. And just to tell you a little bit about the process, we got a letter that says, you have deficiencies. If you'd like to know what those deficiencies are, please write us a letter. So we wrote a letter.
What?
Yes, that we had to write a letter to say we would like to know what the deficiencies are. So we wrote a letter, and we got those deficiencies. We got a list of 8 deficiencies. We immediately, within a day or two, we did get, it's the only time I really was able to talk to Darwin Watson. We did get a conference with him because the deficiency letter we got, it didn't tell us what we should do to fix those. It just cited the ordinances and said, you're deficient here, 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 and here. And we're like, well, can you tell us how we're deficient and what you would like us to do to resolve those deficiencies? So we talked with the lawyer within days, and we asked for his response. We never got that. We had to respond within 30 days later. We went ahead and as best we could, anticipating the objections, we filed our response to the original deficiency letter in the first week in March. We have been waiting since March, 7 months, to even get any kind of formal response, any kind of written response to our response to the deficiencies. And we're still waiting to this day.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So this is a huge problem, and it really, I think the problem is not that you need, maybe you do, maybe you don't need more licenses, and that's a decision for the city commission to make.
Yeah.
But what you do need to do is process the applications that you already have. They're just dead. They have been up to now dead in the water.
Add a waiver.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what is happening now, per our city manager, that next week is going to be dedicated to fixing this cluster.
That is correct.
Okay. I do appreciate that, city manager.
So do I. Cluster's the right word.
What's the name of your company, sir?
Didn't be your name either.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's Dale Clever. KLE.
Mr. Clement.
BER. Yeah, we're finally get to see each other. I hope to get to you last week, but
Who is so sad?
well, we're so Tetra is a Michigan corporation. We have a facility that we've bought.
Where you located?
We've signed in Benton Harbor. We have a facility.
Address.
It's on Milton Street. It's gosh, what is it now? I forget the number. It's one of the vacant, kind of almost vacant properties.
Somebody gonna click.
1185.
1185 Milton.
That's so we have a purchase agreement to buy that facility.
Is it pursuant to you acquiring a license?
We have a contingency, and it's a binding purchase agreement. They have to sell it to us. We have a contingency that we close on it once we have a license. So yes.
Oh, somebody gonna clean up over there.
And I was actually told by the city attorney the one time I was able to talk to him that, oh no, you got to go ahead and you got to buy that first. That's just you know, you're gonna do really well, and that's just you have to take a chance on buying that before you get approved for a license.
Wow.
In so many words, that's what he told me.
Thank you, sir.
Wow.
Is that it? Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Pardon me?
Do you have anything for now you want to add to that?
Real quick, I would just say I know you're looking also at changes in the
We
ordinance.
can't hear y'all. Please, if y'all want to talk, please give them the courtesy. We cannot hear.
I know that you're considering potential changes in the ordinance. I'm actually, I don't practice anymore, but I'm a lawyer by training, and I've read those very, very carefully. There's a number of places they can be approved. I know it was the first time that the city passed this ordinance, so there's always bugs to be worked out when you do something for the first time. But I will tell you that there's certain provisions in that ordinance that it's impossible to comply with. One, I'll give you an example. One of the,
You have it in writing?
I have made some suggestions.
All right, could
Sure.
you just state a couple of them real quick?
Well, I'll give you, sure, I understand. And I appreciate your willingness to give me this time. One ordinance, if you look at the literal language, it says that the applicant, and typically the applicant is,
Could you site, where's it at?
I don't have, if you gave me the ordinance, I could tell you the section. Can I approach?
That's a replication of Lansing's,
Oh,
That's not.
for the record. Actually, it's a duplication of
Can you just tell us
Lansing's.
what the?
What the substantive issue is? Sure. The issue is, this is just one example, there's a number of them. The issue is the ordinance, if you look at the strict language of the ordinance, it says the applicant must have X dollars in the bank, and those dollars are required under the state statute. You know, you want to make sure that your applicants are well capitalized and they can actually go forward and run business. But the applicant, in most cases, is a company, not a person, not an individual. And the nature of federal law being what it is, banks will not open up a bank account for any entity involved in the marijuana industry. So banks can't and won't give you a bank account. But your ordinance says you have to have, I think for growers, for large growers, it's $500,000 in the applicant's bank account. It's impossible.
Exactly.
Because banks don't do business with medical marijuana companies because of the federal laws. So that's just one example. There's others. I appreciate your time.
Can I ask that he send those to me?
Sure.
Please, I'd like to have.
I'll do, I have a number of them. I'll do another review, another pass through the ordinance.
I
But
appreciate it.
one last kind of general point I'd make about this is, I'll give you another example of insurance. The city ordinance and the state requires you to have a certain level of insurance for your business. There's a state minimum. And one of our deficiencies was you don't have insurance. We told them who we're going to go to. We had that insurance company say we're ready to issue this policy. They're qualified for it. As soon as they get a license, we'll issue the policy. And what I was told is, basically, no, we want the insurance, you need it now. So we went ahead and bought insurance. We've been waiting about a year. I paid for a year of insurance on a business that doesn't operate yet. It's basically like telling somebody, you need to go buy auto insurance before we give you a license and before you have a car. And you need to have that insurance for a year while we're taking our time to process your application. I've just wasted all that money on insurance. So that's another example. But I will, per the city manager's request, I will go through this one more time and give you some suggestions. But the general point here is, think about the idea of approving a license but not issuing it until insurance is there, the facility's there, and so forth. So there's a difference between approval and actual issuance. And that would make a much more workable one.
thank you, sir.
Can I speak for me?
Just give me 1 second. and
Okay.
Just
I'll give you this back.
Yeah, you can bring it back. Just a point of clarity, Commissioner Adams already so stated that this was a replica of Lansing's. So I think it behooves the city of Benton Harbor to do one that fits the city of Benton Harbor, not the city of Lansing. As far as ordinance.
That will happen.
Commissioner Adams, please.
Thank you. With everything that was going on, there were, I don't know how many attorneys in this very room that went to Lansing all the time to keep up with the ever changes that were being made to these laws. Upon my request, I asked if Darwin, ex-city manager, as well as our city attorney, would please get together with some of these gentlemen after I took Lansing's, the ones that were issuing everything. It made more sense to me to use their ordinance as opposed to the other surrounding communities. Now, sure, we were ahead of everybody else, but had someone sitting in that position been doing their job, if it was their child that was epileptic, they probably would have been doing their job. And you got to forgive me because this is near and dear to my heart. If it had been your child, you'd probably been shaking your head the other way. But I looked at it, and those very deficiencies that you just mentioned, I questioned. But I'm not an attorney, which is why I asked city manager if in fact he would get with her. But I'm glad that the ball is rolling now, and it's not a document that needs to be totally dismantled, just a few changes made, because it really is a good document. Because it being Lansing, the state of Michigan, they're the lawmakers. They're the ones that are any other of other smaller communities. If they change something, we're right there with them. The other communities would probably have to be fishing to find out exactly what it is.
Thank you, Commissioner
If
Adams.
I wasn't-
if I may, one last point, I would concur with,
Oh.
sorry,
You gotta get the floor. We can't just.
I'm sorry.
Go on.
Can't do what you wanna do.
Yeah, we, after she's done, and after he's done, then you get the next.
Very well, thank you.
No, I mean, I have no offense. Go ahead.
I am glad to see that this is moving forward, and I want to personally thank you, City Manager Mitchell. I really appreciate you moving on this, because it means jobs. It means growth for some of the very other things that we discussed earlier in this meeting. And I don't have to have the limelight for this. It's just something that needs to take place, because my baby has passed on. It's been just a little over a year now, but she needed some of that medication.
Yep.
There's some right now that have to drive 40 miles to get their medicine because it helps them. We're talking something medically. This thing with the other marijuana that's also legal will be taking place in December. And we yet have to opt in or out, and I think we ought to opt whichever way that pleases the people.
Thank you, Commissioner, Adams. I do appreciate you putting this on my agenda too. I'm just joking, I don't know that.
I understand. People's agenda.
It is what it is. Nobody wants to touch it, so we're touching it now, and I'm not gonna get beat up for touching it. Because it needed to happen. For everybody who's invested money, there's people who got $5,000 up. How many people got $5,000 up?
21.
21, how much is that? How much is 21?
$105,000.
$105,000 up, and we haven't given people answers. That is wrong. And it's more than just somebody talking and spouting off at the mouth. Look, we need to do what's right by the people who we have their money.
Point of order.
Or give it back.
Point
We
of
need to
order.
do what's right by their money, as Commissioner
Or
Adams
give
just
it
said.
back.
Give it back.
Point of order.
Dr. Chance has the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, through the final proper protocol. Honorable Chair, through you to the City Commission, going back before the candidate's topic on the zoning and the ordinances. I have a question that the federal government, through the tobacco and alcohol regulations of government, the thing was also to protect facilities such as schools, churches, and those. And I'm asking in terms of looking at whether senior citizens facilities, I don't know if that could be included, or these assisted livings. What's the regulations or ordinances? We already have certain zoning ordinances in place. The main thing is making sure those facilities are protected. There was several years ago when I was the head elder at the Harm of Hope Church located on Bellevue, where they wanted to put a liquor store right next to two churches. And so in this particular environment and society that we're kind of overlooking and disrespecting schools, disrespecting churches. And we have in particular, we have a location where there's the senior center on Colfax. So my thought was that, is there any way of having staff look to make sure that the locations respect that zoning and that protection for it, and then if necessary, as back during the plan restorations where you have these drug-free zone signs put up to make sure that we do it on paper, that that could be in place.
I would ask, city manager, before you speak, to give this gentleman an opportunity to speak, because he has been waiting at the mic for the answer. I do appreciate you, sir. Thank you.
Very well. Two quick points. The first is I would agree with Commissioner Adams. I concur that this ordinance is a workable ordinance. It does need some tweaking, but it also needs some judgment in its application. So one of the issues that we got into was there's a point in the ordinance that basically says you have to really have a facility. And it says, you know, to conduct the permitted activities. That's the intent of the ordinance. It says you either need a deed or a lease. We have a signed purchase agreement, a binding legal contract to buy a facility, and the lawyer said, oh no, it's got to be a deed or a lease. That is looking at the literal intent and ignoring, the literal language and ignoring the intent. So there's got to be some common sense in terms of the judgment. But I would agree right now, even if there is common sense in the way the ordinance is administered, this ordinance is workable. But if you're going to interpret it literally, then you better have a certain amount of those changes. So the second comment I would make is to the doctor's comments about the location relative to senior citizens or schools or churches. There are statutes in the state statute that defines those ordinances for schools and churches, the minimum distance. I think schools 500 feet. I think the churches is 1,000 feet. But and this is the point that I want you to really think about. And we made this point at the Plan Commission discussions in the zoning ordinance. Is there's different types of facilities. Mm-hmm. So we have there's 4 or 5 different types of facilities. Most people think about a facility and they think about a liquor store, they think about a head shop, and these new ones aren't looking like that, but they're a retail facility. You know, we're in a factory that's always been, we're going to be in a factory that's always been a factory, and we can't even put a sign up on the outside of it. We're actually, as I said in the prior meetings, we're going to be a better neighbor than whatever's been in there before, because we're not making noise. We're growing plants. Our emissions are oxygen. We're not making smoke and diesel fumes. We're not making noise. We don't have a lot of traffic. So, but most of the, you know, if you think about it before and after picture, the only difference is our building's gonna look a lot nicer once we're in it and we've improved it a little bit. But it's still gonna be a factory. It's gonna be a factory that's been there since 1950. So make sure when you think about restrictions on where facilities are, think about the different types of facilities. Retail facilities and shops are one thing. They're supposed to be public. They have to be. But all the other ones, the processors and the growers and the safety testing facilities, they're really not in the same category. So with that, you've been very generous with allowing me to speak. I appreciate it. And I will sit down. Thank you.
City manager.
I just wanted to say, and to answer the question about distance, compliance is with the other department that has to clear that.
Thank you. Good job. Commissioner Henry? You have something more to add?
I'm just glad that we're moving forward. We need jobs. We need these things, so thank you for moving forward, making this project work. But I'm hoping that the city manager is hearing who the culprits are that are that drug their feet or that put barriers in place. I'm hoping that the city manager heard that comment, because it definitely put big red flags up for me. I heard it. I thought it was a rumor. Now I'm hearing the truth. So I hope he heard it, so he'll know who the players are and and how they're playing. Thank you.
I don't.
Excuse me?
You got what you said?
I got what she said.
Commissioner Adams and Commissioner Jones.
I want to reiterate on something that the gentleman said. The only changes that I made to that document was something that I added that I thought was very good, because listening to the community and from what I see at the corner drugstore, the stores and stuff with all that signage, was nothing from the outer side, including the sign of the business, could not be of green leaf or anything pertaining to it being marijuana. And anything visible on the outer side could not be, anything on the inside could not be visibly seen from the outside in public view. Now, that was something that I thought I masterminded. And there's some ladies across the street, some homeowners, taxpayers, that are gonna really appreciate whoever move across the street and clean that up, because it's been pathetically sad. They ought to have so many, code of ordinance tickets on that property, it don't make no sense.
Thank you. Mr. C.F. Jones.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned about the ordinance who drafted it, and if you recall, it was brought up several times in committee meetings, and also when it got pushed up to us in the commission. Each time, Commissioner Adams was right. It was supposed to have been tweaked out by our city attorney along with our city manager at the time on how to proceed with a certain process to make that happen. And I would be in one of the committee meetings where it was addressing dealing with the possible influx of applications, and all that was supposed to be resolved through public safety, all right? But all of it was supposed to be tweaked, should have been tweaked out before now, true enough, all right? I'm with them, I'm glad the process is going forward. But also, we need to pay attention, as before, as we had the prosecutor as well as the sheriff.
In Benton Harbor.
Pay attention to what's being said and to what you're putting out there. Don't be quick to agree to everything that's supposedly wrong or whatnot. Because if you remember, it was told to you guys, including myself, this is not going to happen. It was implied, this is not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So what we need to do, once again, what I implored to you a long time ago, as I was saying, what we all should be doing, read these documents for ourselves and understand what it's saying, then to have somebody to interpret it for you to what they believe it should say. All right? And mirror its intent. We don't want to have to revisit this down the road as we revisit so many other things that wasn't done in the best interest, that we start pointing fingers. We need to look at these things for ourselves to say, hey, we came out with the best possible solution for a best possible answer at a given time. So don't be quick to say, okay, yeah, this is this. Read it again and see if that's what you intended for it to be. All right? You as drafting author, look at it again and see if that's what you agree with or know the intent, that's what we're
Commissioner
going.
Jones, it was given to the city attorney to fix. I went over the document several times.
But you drafted it, you the drafter.
No, Lansing was the
No, you
drafter.
drafted it, because you brought it to the body. You brought it to the body. And all I'm saying is revisit it and see what's being told to you is the way you want it to go. Basically, the whole body, not just you, just saying.
Yeah.
That's it.
Good suggestion.
Thank you, we do appreciate it. I think a workshop needs to be held, but I also don't think that this document, there's some other issues with the document that, and even the permit application evaluation that needs to be changed. More stuff on there is personal than anything, has nothing to do with business. It's all judgment, personal judgment. I would ask that we, as a commission, address this as soon as possible. Maybe we can have a workshop hearing or something, or y'all don't want to do that?
Won't happen.
Well, because what's happening is, again, we have $105,000 of somebody's money.
We think.
Is that money accounted for, city manager?
It is accounted for.
We have $105,000 of people's money that we need to, you said return it?
I said possible.
We need to get,
We're gonna straighten it out.
we need to get it
The city
straightened out.
manager already told us we got it straight.
Please, if you would. City manager, so can we find out what was the consensus holdup of every application? Was that something that's personal?
Wow, that's a good one. Oh,
Well, because if everybody has the same issue
yeah,
and it fits Lansing and not Benton Harbor, because then you also have the problem that I got, where they just popped up a school down here right across from a liquor store.
it's not school.
Well, it's a tech center that they're saying right across the street from the liquor store that D.L. Ashoka put down there, that is pretty much really offensive to have any learning facility right there
Yeah.
across the street from the liquor store,
Next door.
or next door to a liquor store.
Yeah.
I would ask, not only that, but even with the liquor stores that are present, and this goes to my public safety director, I think we need to do a better job with them. The selling the Choy Boy
Mm,
and Brillo pads and the little rolled glasses, I thought,
all in it.
you know, all that stuff, we have to start,
Shouldn't be
it's
visible.
contraband.
Yep,
I think we should do something about it, even sending people in there, because I was at, the store here on, Paw, and the state sent a young man in there who looked like us, who was dressed like us, and he was trying to buy liquor and cigarettes with the state police waiting around the corner. And luckily they had cameras, well, not luckily they had cameras, but they looked at the cameras and said that was the police, and they busted about 3 or 4 others in the community. Are we doing something as a city to hold these liquor stores accountable? What are we doing? If you speak, can you speak to that?
Sure can.
Thank you.
We have done several times. We've got some partnerships that we had grant funds for as well as other. We haven't done any yet this in the last couple months, but we got some 18-year-olds that go into the stores under supervision, see if they can buy cigarettes and liquor, and then we take enforcement from there, and it gets reported to the state.
So we have been doing that.
Mhm.
What about the selling of drug paraphernalia? Like Choy Boy and
Unfortunately,
sometimes they say they sell brown bag specials, which is the whole kit. Smoke crack.
unfortunately, there's no laws on the books that say you can't.
So crack pipes?
You're not see, you're gonna deal into that legal mumbo jumbo there because they're not selling crack pipes. They're selling little rolls in a glass.
something else.
And what the end user does is what the end user does.
Yeah.
See,
What
that's the
about
thing.
single cigarettes?
Well, that's illegal. That's a tax issue. And
Okay.
again, we busted people for that.
This legislation.
But those items, the chore boy, that in itself is a cleaning item.
Wash
Now,
dishes.
and I got last thing I'm gonna say, I'm gonna get it. Down that ravine behind Sunny Spot. They need to do something about that. Because they're dumping behind that. From what I'm hearing, Sunny Spot is dumping down that ravine.
I knew that was gonna be a bad
And
deal.
it looks ridiculous down there. If you look down there, you should shut the doors on them.
Brownfield did that.
That area looks for them just dumping
Excuse me,
down in that
where
area.
is that area, please?
Sunny Spot is on the corner
Empire Pipestone.
of Dr. Ty's phone. It's on the corner of Pipestone and Empire, the gas station right there
Oh, yeah, okay.
that precedes the ravine right before you get to the old cab company. All right, so
Checking on that tomorrow.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Turn that down for me now, because she has a very heavy voice. Dr. Ty's.
Going back, I just wanted the Honorable Chair through the city manager. I think it's the point of clarity to make sure that I understand this and that this may be an issue that we have to give a definition of what an applicant is. Is an applicant is going to be an individual? Can an applicant be a corporation, a collection of individuals, an LLC? For this, what is the definition of an applicant? And that may help out, especially if there's going to be a criteria associated with it, as was presented by the gentleman earlier, in terms of a bank facility not being able to give fund or give statements for approval or certification to a marijuana based or any kind of drug based industry.
I think he will agree with me that whether it's an individual or a corporation, it still applies.
Thank you. I would ask also, because you got Pastor Hoyt back there, you got the good church over there on Broadway and Pipestone. And I don't think that should be deemed a church. He's not using it for a church, I don't believe it.
Yes, it is.
He's using it for a church?
It's still a church.
All right, well, that should, hey, if you do it, we should have either waivers.
Yeah.
We should do waivers as far as,
Can
we do waivers as far as, religious institution? 'Cause I don't, I mean, we got too many churches on the book right now anyway. You know, I mean, they should be paying taxes, the ones that they got on the tax rolls are not tax exempt. So are we, gonna do waivers?
I'm gonna have to ask a question. Are churches and schools exempt?
From what? From taxes?
Yeah.
I haven't been on.
I don't, well.
Talk about it after.
I haven't been on. They're not exempt from been on. So we're gonna have to add a waiver in this ordinance to say that, I mean, because if a guy got a building and he ain't got nothing in there but angels, I mean, we ain't gonna call it no church.
I was trying to get clarification of waivers. See, I'm confused about the
He's
term.
not done.
I'm serious because you got a church on every few blocks of Benton Harbor. I mean, they have a church in their houses now. And they call it just to get tax exempt. So we gotta do something to, check a waiver or have a waiver put in that. Well, I think we can do that as a commission.
I'll work with the attorney and make sure we get it.
Now, should we hire a different attorney?
Right.
All together.
Say that now.
Oh,
What's the question?
we should, I think we should hire.
Point of order. Can you please stay on the agenda?
I am on the agenda, I'm Commissioner. Should we hire another attorney
Look,
to handle this area? Because what's happening now is, and we see it in the meetings. You give information is never corrected, information is never dealt with, never done, no update. We need somebody who's gonna take this and do what's necessary, outsource everything else to other attorneys. The attorney outsources everything else to, I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
but City Honorable Chair, we put out an RFP for a firm or somebody to come in here and actually do these applications. When things were, and this was over 8 months ago, or was it about 7, 8 months ago?
It didn't happen. We asked you to
Because
do it.
of what, our Honorable Commissioner Jones stated.
But we gotta make.
It was told to us that it's not gonna happen. And some of us right up here was making sure that it didn't too.
I played no part in any of it.
Exactly.
Shame on you if you didn't.
I mean, I'm a grown enough man to speak if I want to do something.
Yeah,
I do.
but as far as a waiver is
And that-
concerned,
oh,
Honorable Chair.
You just put something out there.
No, but I wasn't
I need to
finished.
clarify what you just stated about me.
I didn't say
When
you.
I spoke to the city manager, when I voted about him being hired, I talked to this gentleman himself. And I explained to him the reason why I voted how I voted. The vote carried, and I told him I'm willing to work with anybody who's working for the city of Benton Harbor. So I don't go dragging y'all when y'all done voted. Y'all vote no on the accounts payable, but you still pick up your check. So how that's working for you?
Working,
You vote against the accounts payable, but you pick up a check.
working.
So I mean, let's just do what's right. And you vote the way you vote, you do what you do, but I never fought this. Because there are people who are utilizing this, no, seriously, because I have family members, I had an uncle who was dying of cancer.
Oh, now you shared the story.
Well, he wasn't dying then.
Oh, but now you understand the seriousness of where I was coming from.
Point of order, Chair. Can we please go back to the agenda?
Honorable Chair, can we go to the waiver? I
Hey,
have a
can I ask y'all a
question.
question? Can I ask y'all a question? What did y'all do in the communication meeting? Why did y'all bring that to the communication meeting?
Point
Y'all
of
had
order.
tons of time and that
Can
meeting,
we
y'all-
please
nothing
stay
that-
on the agenda
I asked
topic?
the city manager a question. Please, seriously. Through the chair, city manager, as far as a waiver is concerned, will that allow us to take bits and pieces if the applicant wants to
Man, I need to get I could have made about
bring
56
something
dollars
forward?
on
I mean,
It'd be
is
wrong,
that
right?
something that would give us the power to want to do business with them and give them the authority to actually do something? Is that what a waiver actually does? Say like Morton Hill School is no longer open. MLK is no longer open. They're not usable, but yet it's in our ordinance, in our zoning. So would something like that be waiverable? Is that a word?
Well, I think what she's trying to say, if somebody has a building and they're not having religious activities, can that board waiver and say, we're not doing what is so stated, even though we have the building, we're not in operation? And I think that would be something where you would ask for a waiver, or if a guy just shooting dice in the building, it shouldn't be called a church. Dr. Sanders.
All right, I'm trying to get clarity. As a member of the National Council of Nonprofits, and I've worked with the governor of the state of Michigan and Rachel Eubanks of the income tax in terms of who's our treasurer for the state. Trying to get clarity on, are we asking really waiver or exemption? Because the federal law, state law is very clear. Even though the city of Benton Harbor violated federal law, violated state law, and is currently violating the law by taxing, the city of Benton Harbor went out and taxed the churches, active churches in the city of Benton Harbor, which was against federal state law. The state itself rejected that petition was withdrawn. They were submitted down to the county. So that issue is being done there. So that's what the legal taxing that was mentioned earlier. But the next point is that, that if the city is going to be going up against federal law, state law, because the city cannot currently oversee the city or the federal state. When you're talking about exempt status,
You talking about taxing the churches or the weed marijuana?
no, I'm saying that when you're going to issue an exemption or a waiver, that two things you need to mention is that one, what was said to the city manager, what was said to the mayor from the treasurer's office and from the governor's office, the city cannot tax what the state or federal government has deemed exempt. So if you're going to change the status of a institution that's been federally recognized, state recognized, then you are going against the law of the state government and federal government. So if you're going to do a waiver exemption, are you really saying that you're going to, I'm trying to understand, what are you waiving, or are you exempting this facility that so it can operate next to a school or a church? Or are you saying that because I heard two things, that you try to issue an exemption or a waiver to allow a facility that is retail distribution to be next to a former school or church that's not active. I'm trying to be clear on that because the gentleman pointed out that factories that are not selling, shouldn't fall in that same classification, and therefore I could understand an exemption or waiver in that status that they can operate close to a school or facility because there will not be no sale of distribution. So I'm just trying to get clarity on the term waiver versus exemption, in terms of what the law is. So I'm trying to get that clarity.
We'll get back, we'll get that back to you.
Well, that was directed towards the city manager.
He didn't say nothing about a waiver. The city manager didn't say nothing about a waiver, or he didn't ask.
We're asking him.
We were asking a question about if a building is not there and they so state that they welcome that entity, because some churches now, I mean, believe it or not, are partaking in it.
It's
I mean,
been
they got-
like
and-
names.
And in Buffalo, you got churches that are breweries.
Okay.
You got the one over here on Broadway that used to be Reverend Gully's place, that's now an arts museum.
Mhm.
So we're just saying, if
Yeah,
Abundant Life says, I don't mind, I use mine,
yeah, there you go.
I don't mind them being 500, 700 feet away, as long as they do what Commissioner Adams says, they take a blighted piece of property and fix it up, where it was nothing, now make it something. Can we make a process for that? Commissioner Henry,
Thank you, Chair.
they already got one.
Ordinance is a law. Ordinance is something that our charter allowed us to have. The citizens have to have approval of an ordinance. So it has to go through public hearings just to change our ordinance.
That's fine.
So what you talking about doing is a change of an ordinance. Yes, it can be done, but it has to go through
Just do the
the process.
Yes, it went through the process, but.
You have to go through the
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
to do an ordinance change.
We gotta do something for these people.
Yeah. We can
Oh, and it
add
sounds
a
like
waiver
to me,
into it.
this is the third time that the city manager has said, I got this.
We'll add.
We're working on this.
Add a waiver.
So why are
into
we
it.
still beating this animal? Because he said it 3 times and he's doing it.
All right, for the hearing and impaired. The reason why we are doing this today publicly, because nobody had an answer. These people are here because they never got an answer from anybody.
Never.
So now the reason why we're here tonight is because we're trying to get people who put money out there an answer.
You have to give me.
You gotta give somebody an answer. Are y'all satisfied? You got an answer tonight?
We're satisfied with one's in process, but we don't have it.
Okay.
You have to have, we done kicked this can down the road for 2 years.
3.
3 years, and ain't nobody got no answer. And the reason why some of them are kicking the can down the road so long, because they probably don't participate on the Come on, Pastor Lloyd.
For a point of clarity,
Yes, sir.
292 Bellevue is the oldest church in the city of Benton Harbor since 1886. It's still a church. For the last 5 years, Pastor Oscar has come from Hammond, Indiana, every Wednesday at 1:30 to come and join us. Thank you.
Is Pastor Oscar still coming?
He sure does. He was there today.
Praise the Lord. And what's your position now?
Hey, why, trying to go on,
Come on, Chair,
Thank you,
please.
now that's part of, what's his name? Obama's old pastor.
Yeah, that's totally separate.
Change him up?
Yeah, they,
Point of order, can
It
we
was
still stay
clarification, so your
on
oldest
topic?
boss was, Trinity Church took over, one of my mentors, Jeremy, Pastor Rice Church.
Jeremiah Wright.
Jeremiah Wright, they transitioned it to, Mr. Hart.
So what we're gonna do is not to appreciate everybody coming. You guys wanna have, you wanna have something on that?
No,
You just was here to get up, listen to the update, huh?
you cover everything.
All right, good. You have anything you wanna add? All right, anybody else got anything they wanna add?
Yes, sir.
Come on, please. Thank you for coming tonight, Commissioner Harrelson. You know, I didn't recognize you earlier, I do appreciate you being here. Please speak on the mic, sir.
I'll make sure you hear me. I thank the city manager for stepping in and doing what a whole lot of people here wasn't doing at all. And that's why it's been such a empty hole. Nothing being done, and everywhere else is moving forward with all of theirs. What you did, and I'm talking about the whirlpools, the preachers what covered this room, trying to downplay it and make it not happen. It was the citizens, and you have to keep not forgetting it was the citizens who made this happen. Because if it had anything to do with a preacher in this town or the police department in this town, it would never, and I say never would have happened. Especially with some of the commissioners and mayors and all of that we have up there in disagreement as well. I'd like to thank through the chair, I would like to thank the guys in the medical marijuana field, but stuck with it, kept coming back. I was happy to see him coming back because I knew you guys were going to smash it, keep it from happening, and it's been that way for, I say, a couple of years. And I'd like to see quick movement on it because there's a lot of sick people in this town. Now that they've legalized it for everybody, I like to see these businesses go up because they are what's going to help our school system, because each one of them that put in these applications did say that they would support our school system. That's why I felt real bad when we had people saying no to it. But the citizens spoke, and it had to happen, and it did, and it had nothing to do with no eyes, all you need, big eyes, and making us little U's. It was the little U's what made it happen. Medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. And I want to say to end this, when you can help the citizens and you turn around and want God to help you, you can figure the rest of that out. Thank you.
That's what I'm making.
Hey, don't play with my God.
Appreciate it.
You can play with me, but don't play with my God.
Have a good night. I appreciate you.
I don't appreciate you at all.
City manager, do me a favor. Don't let them know what my next meeting is. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good night.
I'll be at every one.
Better get raised there. Mike, I'm going to have to make that.
Me too. About 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.